Hello, and welcome to another episode of PeppTalks with Jeanne. I'm your host, Jeanne Pepper. I started PeppTalks as a way to inspire you to do intentional acts of kindness and to further the goals of Blaze It Forward. Over the past 6 years, PeppTalks evolved, and now I use it for interviewing key people in our community who volunteer at the next level. Some start foundations to further their philanthropic goals, some work at the most needed and influential nonprofits, or dedicate their lives to causes in their local or even global community to make this world a better place. Today, I'm happy to have Anne Friedman of Gay for Good, who's going to tell us about her work there. So thank you for joining us today, Anne.
Thank you so much for having me and providing this opportunity to talk with you about Gay for Good today.
Well, we're delighted. I love this organization. I just learned that it was around before Blaze's death, but you didn't start working there until right after his death.
That's right. I can tell you a little bit about our founding. So we're about to turn 15. Gay for Good was founded in Los Angeles, California in 2008. Right after the loss of marriage equality, there were 3 friends who were part of a hiking group, and they were really trying to figure out a way to really connect with the broader community. As one of them often talks about, the LGBTQ community can tend to be very insular and hang out in their own neighborhoods, which can often create opportunities for there to be misperceptions about who we are as people, and doesn't always offer opportunities for people to really get to know you. And so they came up with this idea of really using volunteerism as a vehicle to unite people across their differences and to get out into the community.
That is really beautiful and really smart too, because I think you're right about that when you stay insular, it's hard for people to really get to know who you are.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know my parents live in I heard you use the word gayborhood, and my parents had a home in Palm Springs where I grew up, and it turned into a gayborhood.
Yes.
Which is cool because the houses are all beautiful.
Yeah. No, and it's awesome. There's something to be said for living in a community that's really safe and inclusive, and
exactly.
You feel really welcomed and you feel like you belong. But it also creates this barrier to getting out there and other people getting to know you. And so one of the things that I think is really unique and the reason that Gay for Good really stands out and what's really special about our mission is really that we go out and we serve the broader community. And by broader, I'm talking about organizations that are helping all kinds of people in need, helping animals, helping the environment. And approximately 90% of the nonprofits we work with are actually not directly in service to LGBTQ people. And that's very much on purpose so that we can be out in the community.
Oh, that's really lovely. I really like that idea. Very, very global.
Yeah.
Very global minded. And that's really important because I think in this day and age, if you are remaining insular and you're not part of, popular culture, you can become very misunderstood.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you're using community service as a vehicle for that because you are vibing very high when you do such good things and help people. So that's really lovely.
No, it's really amazing. And I mean, at its core, it's really about our volunteers. We're hoping to change the world for them. About, a huge percentage of our volunteers are LGBTQ plus identified. We have lots of allies as well, though. We actually have the word ally in our mission very purposefully because we believe allies matter. And, we want the world to be a better place for this community. And if we can go out there and make a difference for someone else, and that turns around and changes someone's heart or their mind and their perception of who LGBTQ people are, then we've done our job to make the world safer and kinder for our volunteers.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, you have a history of working for nonprofits, and I know that you also have a history with my family, which is kind of, I don't believe in coincidences. So,
right.
Anne was put on this path long before Blaze existed because she actually went to high school with Gideon, my husband. So
that's right. That's right. We came to find out in a job interview about 11 years ago, in my job prior to Gay for Good. Was applying for a job in a completely different city and heard the name Bernstein, and kind of a light bulb went off, and realized, wait a minute, this is somebody that I actually kind of grew up in the same community with in Los Angeles. So very small world that we came back together. And I think that in the aftermath of what's happened with Blaze has even brought me closer to your family.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange. I would believe anything at this point because there have been so many coincidences, but I don't really believe in that. I mean, it's taken me a long time to realize that the coincidences they're sort of like telling me, at least, that I don't believe that things happen for a reason, but I do believe that it kind of is a signpost that we are on the right path.
Right.
When these things happen, you are going in the right direction, and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So, and I seem to have a lot of these things happen like one after the next when I'm on the right path. So it's just like either that or I'm just really perceptive and like, I don't know, things are weird. But I refuse to believe that.
Yeah. No, so you're right. I've been in nonprofits prior to this. I was working at the Jewish Community Foundation in Orange County. I absolutely loved my work there. Got to sit on the other side of philanthropy, being able to help the foundation empower people to use their money wisely, or to, even after their lifetime, be able to know that we were being really good stewards of people's money and their philanthropic wishes. And so I think that was a really great starting off point into the world of being in the nonprofit space.
Absolutely. So you mentioned to me before we started that, and I tried to get you to talk about it at the beginning, that you actually quit your job with the Jewish Community Foundation of Orange County within hours, days of Blaze's death.
Yes. So I had been, during my time at the foundation, I was on the board of directors for Gay for Good. We were in 10 cities at that point, or actually 9, about to add chapters 10 and 11. And we'd spent years turning organizations away, or turning new cities away, and kept talking about needing to hire staff to really grow the organization, but we didn't have the financial means to be able to do that. There was no resources. Gay for Good was very much a working board, a volunteer engine that was just very grassroots. However, in the days following Blaze's disappearance, and when we came to find out that his life had been taken from him, for me, it was just a very pivotal moment for me personally. Mm-hmm. I, heard many stories about it being because he might be gay or because he was Jewish. And I know in that moment, I knew I couldn't change what happened to Blaze, and I can't stop someone from having mental illness, but I certainly knew that I had the power to spread more kindness and joy into this world, and to create, hopefully, a more inclusive future for other young kids and college kids. And so I came home from work the day after Blaze's body was found, and I sat down and had a very serious conversation with my wife about quitting my job.
Wow.
And it was a very big leap of faith. We did not have funding, and I basically hit the pavement and started raising money for Gay for Good so that we could take it to the next level. And I convinced the other board members to go on this journey with me to grow the organization. And I'm really proud to say that in 6 years now, we just launched our 21st chapter on Oahu this month.
Wow.
We had about 6,000 people on our mailing list when I left the foundation and took this position. We now just hit over 20,000 people. And we're going to be hitting my goal of more than 325 events this year. So
wow, that's really interesting. And from what I understand too, there's only 2 employees.
That's right. We're hoping to change that, and we are on a path, hopefully, to be doing that. We're really doing a lot of work to secure the funding to be able to bring on additional staff, because we are definitely stretched way too thin. We have the really good fortune and a beautiful model by which we train and empower community leaders to plan these events and to go out in their community and run the organization. But there's still a lot of work and a lot of support that they need. And we're seeing some gaps that we're really trying to fill as it comes to providing them the most efficient technology to recruit and organize volunteers, as well as some of the training that they need, some DEI training, conflict resolution. Things come up when you've got 95 people who are volunteers leading an organization with just 2 staff.
What is your biggest chapter?
Largest size-wise would be Los Angeles, and that's because it's where it was founded. So it's the oldest chapter, 15 years. But we have chapters of all different sizes. We have chapters that have 4 or 5 events a month. We have chapters that have 1 event a month. We have chapters that do social events. They all have their own unique flavor and have the causes that are near and dear to specific leaders or maybe in their communities. And just as an example of that, although we are very much about serving the broader community, we have chapters like our Rocky Mountains chapter that's in a pretty rural community right in the Roaring Fork Valley near Aspen. And because they're so small, they have to band together with the other LGBTQ plus organizations to make sure that the youth and the kids and even the adults there feel supported and have community. So they do a lot of things actually with the LGBTQ plus community, which is a little bit different than our mission in most cities, but we're seeing a little bit of a shift.
Okay.
And I think we are at a place right now where we're embracing that shift. We want to definitely stay true to our core that, serving the broader community really serves our mission. But we also realize that there are so many people who are underrepresented and underserved within the LGBTQ plus space.
Yeah.
And so finding opportunities to really lift up the transgender community or work with youth, work with college campuses. These are things that we're really exploring and embracing a little bit more.
Beautiful. So what are the goals now, like future goals? Like besides having more chapters, are there more things that you're going to want to do with community service other than what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the dreams are obviously more chapters, but seeing chapters potentially on college campuses or, being able to, our new chapter, actually their very first event where they went out and had a little resource fair was at a campus in Hawaii. And so being able to really start with the younger generation, and giving them an opportunity to be a part of this, and to really instill a sense of like the beauty and power of service and volunteerism. There's something magical about volunteering. It's good for your physical health. It's good for your mental health. And then there's the byproduct of like the people or the community that you're serving that benefits from that.
Yes. Yeah. Very good. Can you tell us about your personal journey? Like, how did you end up here?
Yeah, I was actually married. I had 2 kids. I got married really young, and I was divorced after a 17-year marriage and found myself thinking about my own sexuality and really came to a realization that I had been living I don't like to say the wrong life because I have 0 regrets and I have the most beautiful children and I would not change that for the world. One of them recently made me a grandmother, so I'm very excited about that. But I came out later in life. I was in my 40s, and a lot of things changed for me. I went back to school. I got my degree. Wow. I changed careers. I just had my 7-year anniversary to my wife. We've been together for 14 years.
Wow.
And but I stumbled upon Gay for Good when I first came out. I was looking for a way to meet other queer people. I was part of meetup groups that were volunteering and doing things like that. And I thought, well, what better way to combine like a group of really good humans that share some values and that I could connect with while I'm volunteering.
That was a great nexus point for you when you joined the community.
Yeah.
That was the way that you did it.
No, I showed up. My first event was at the LA Food Bank. I will never forget it. I happened, just by happenstance, to be standing next to 2 of the founders and working an assembly line, filling packages with food. Went out to lunch after that. They asked me if I'd be interested in being a chapter leader, which are the volunteers that plan events.
Yeah.
And fast forward to today, I've been with this organization for a long time.
Well, there's a sign of karma in the universe, isn't there? I mean, that was the first time you ever volunteered with this group that you met the founders.
Yeah.
And they became your future employers, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing. And that was your entry point. How did it feel for you coming out? Like, was this like your way of coming out, or did you come out to your family first, or how did you?
I talked to my family about it really quickly, and my children. I'm a go big or go home person. When I do something, I go all in. I mean, no different than when I, left one job to work at the foundation, which, by the way, when I got that job, I had just gotten into college and was going to be going to school full time and had to figure out how to juggle being a Gay for Good volunteer, sitting on the board, working full time while also going to school full time. And they were very accommodating so that I could do that. Right. But I tend to go all in. And the same thing happened with this. When
Yeah.
I decided I wanted to take on this job, it was all in. So similarly, when I came out, I was very quick to start going out to places where I could meet other queer people and spend time around people who I felt a connection to. And I told my kids right away, and I was very fortunate. I know that there's so many people whose families are not supportive. We have a lot of volunteers within Gay for Good who are not out at work, or even chapter leaders who are not out, if you can believe that, who do this work, but yet do it in person, but we can't use their photos on our website. They don't want to be in any group photos, which still amazes me that they feel that big of a connection to creating this space, and yet they're not even able to be fully out with their own families or their own employers.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up as what you find interesting. What I find interesting is that in this day and age that they don't feel comfortable being out.
I think, everybody has their own personal story or
totally
journey. And it's
agree.
actually, honestly, it's things like your son's story.
I know. And
that can instill a lot of fear in people.
I get it. Believe me, I understand.
And I will tell you, I have rarely, I walk through the world and I know I walk through it privileged.
Yeah.
I don't look Jewish. I don't look like what somebody might embody a lesbian to quote unquote look like. But I walk through the world and I'm able to share what I want. There's nothing when you look at me that gives anybody a sign of anything about my identity.
Are you afraid to walk like holding hands with your wife? I mean, do you think
Not
about
normally.
that?
Not
Okay.
normally. We are very open, to just like any other couple is how I would describe it. No, not overly, lovey-dovey in public, and not hiding from that. Although I will say that I have had some moments where I've had one or two moments, fortunately only one or two, where I've really been nervous and been fearful. And that's a scary feeling. And I can't imagine, I feel very privileged that that's only happened to me twice. I cannot imagine what it would be like to live in a community or to walk through this world with a target on your back.
That's very true. Was your family accepting, your friends and family, of your decision?
Yes. My family raised me to just be a good person and to love all people. And so I was very fortunate that I had a very easy coming out, if you want to call it. Like,
Wow.
I just was completely supported. My kids were completely supportive. I introduced them to my now wife, pretty early on in our relationship. And it was just never a blink of an eye. They just fully supported us.
Can you tell me about some of the community service projects that you're working on?
Oh gosh. So I'm actually really excited. I don't get to volunteer very often anymore because I'm so busy running the organization, but I actually stumbled upon this really cool nonprofit called Unlimited Possibilities here in Orange County. And I'm going to be helping lead a project this coming weekend where they have something called the Up to Us Club Day. And it's a day where parents of children with different abilities can drop off their kids for a few hours, and mom and dad can get a break. And they need volunteers to set up craft stations and sensory games. And because it's October, we're going to be doing Halloween costumes and crafts. And so I'm really excited. And we're going to be bringing about 30 volunteers who are going to help set it all up. And then they'll pair up with the kids and be buddies one-on-one with the kids. So that's a really exciting project that we have coming up. But that's just one of many
that
we're working on.
Have you personally designed any of the community service projects that you do?
Yeah, I actually worked on that one from start to finish, working with the nonprofit. I've arranged lots of volunteer projects because I was a chapter leader.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a volunteer. So I've organized many a project in my day. I actually just organized a project. Sometimes we like to do what we call a social plus service project. Mm-hmm. So rather than actually go to the nonprofit, we'll have a social event and bring together a lot of great people, but have some sort of call to action. And so we just recently worked with a corporate group last week in LA, and we had them all bring non-perishable food items for Thanksgiving for the LA's LGBTQ Center's senior food pantry.
Very
and then we
nice.
set up a card making station, and they made like happy holiday, happy holiday cards for the residents that are living in one of 2 of the senior living facilities.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
How many people are in the chapter in Los Angeles?
Oh, thousands.
Oh,
thousands on the mailing list. Yeah.
Wow.
We have several thousand on the mailing list just in Los Angeles. And then we also have our Facebook group. So each chapter has its own presence within the larger scope of our website. So you can sign up and pick the chapter you want to hear from. And so again, because LA was the founding chapter, it's been around the longest to grow the largest. But just as an example, when we launched, and I don't remember the year, but it was about 7 years in, we launched the DFW chapter in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Okay.
And that was back in the day when we had Facebook groups and we were using groups a little more. Within a weekend, over 500 people had signed up on that mailing list.
Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yep.
Wow.
So, I mean, it shows you the power of like the desire of people wanting to get involved.
Yeah.
Now, how many actually are active and coming out and volunteering? That's obviously a small percentage of the people on the 20,000 list. I'd say about 10% are like regulars. And then you have people that come here and there. But a lot of people are connected to our organization just because they want to watch what's happening. They want to see, even if they're not volunteering. They might be somebody who doesn't want to clean up a park, but would rather write a check to help fuel the mission.
Oh, that's great.
And support what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we have those folks as well. And so we have a lot of people that are following us or who are on our mailing list that are really... It's because it's a little bit of happiness in their mailbox.
Right.
You get an email seeing pictures of all of these amazing things that people are doing in their community.
Very cool. It sounds like you're very collaborative. Are there certain organizations that you're more likely to collaborate with? Are you open to collaboration with any nonprofit? Like, if I'm a nonprofit, how can I collaborate with you?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is if it's a group volunteer activity. So we really look for opportunities where we can bring a large number of people to work together, and even better if we can work with other volunteers. So like we did a project here with Laguna Niguel Botanical. And we were working alongside church groups, Boy Scouts, other organizations, and those are like the perfect projects. But we also will work in spaces where it's just us. We just did a Habitat for Humanity build, where the only other people there were, some volunteers that are there regulars who help kind of lead the different stations and projects.
That's really amazing. So this is like a very good way, like if you want to have an exposure to a lot of different kinds of community service and a lot of different kinds of organizations that do like really get out there and do things as opposed to just do cancer research, which is wonderful, by the way.
Right.
I mean, but obviously you can't do cancer research unless you're a researcher. So this is something that is a really hands-on organization.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very hands-on. And it is not unusual for a nonprofit to have us. We actually just worked with Working Wardrobes. Yeah. They thought it was going to take us 3 hours to do the job we did. We were done in an hour. I mean, we were in and out, got it done. Our volunteers work really hard, work really fast, and there's not a lot that they won't do. I mean, we partnered with a local nonprofit here in Orange County called New Directions for Women. It's a home that we learned about during COVID, and because we couldn't go in and be in the space, we put together care packages, welcome kits for the women who were being served by this organization, Women in Recovery. And they asked, this is kind of an example of the beauty of Gay for Good, is they were so moved and had such a great experience working with us that they asked us to come back. So we went back and our volunteers painted their nursery school, and then they asked us to come back and we painted another section of the organization.
That's awesome.
So our volunteers are very well received and well loved in the community. And once we've partnered with a nonprofit, it is very unusual to not be asked, how soon can we come back?
Oh, that's so cool. Is there opportunity for high school students to be involved or to do community service? I know kids need a lot of, community service hours. Some high schools require more.
The answer is it depends. So we have to follow whatever the rules are of our partner. So if we're going into a food bank and they say 16 and up, then high school students 16 and up are welcome. On occasion, we will work with an organization that has a stricter age policy. And so we try whenever possible to note that on our website, on the event page, so that all those details are there. We also try to say, let people know if they need to be able to stand for a certain amount of time, or do they need to be able to lift a certain amount of weight. We try to be as descriptive as possible, but we also try to be accommodating as well. We try to find stuff for people to do that might not be able to stand for a long period.
Right. Is this also a social group? Like, do you have socials, or is it?
We do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some of our chapters do regular socials. Some do them quarterly. Some do them, once a year. They'll have a fundraiser to raise some money, so that they have extras to go out in the community. And typically the money that they're raising is going back out into the community. So it's going into, buying holiday toys for youth, or providing books for a project, or backpacks for kids. They try to put it right back into the community. Obviously still need to pay their bills. We still need to have insurance and certain costs that it takes to run an organization. But we try to put as much back directly into the community as we can.
That sounds really nice. Do your chapters, are they affiliated with like community centers or churches? Like, do they, if they're not, obviously you're not raising money. These chapters don't have employees, so they don't have a building. Like, how do they, where do they have spaces that they collaborate with?
Well, we're lucky that we can collaborate with a lot of our partners, and some do have relationships with like a local UU church or community center. Sometimes they'll have relationships with the LGBTQ center or other organizations in the city that they can use. But because of the nature of going out and partnering with other nonprofits, the majority of things that we're doing are on someone else's site. And so they really just need a place to meet. And in this world of Zoom, we actually were using Zoom far before the pandemic.
Oh, interesting.
Our board is national and across the country. And our chapter leaders are spread across the country. So we've been using Zoom as a means to bring all of our leaders together once a quarter, our board together once a month. But, to answer your question about community spaces, we definitely have relationships with different organizations that we'll use. There's a church in Boston that every single year, Gay for Good, Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, they sit down in the church basement and they make hundreds and hundreds of Valentine's Day cards.
Oh, wow.
For another nonprofit that serves elders in the community in the Boston area.
That's great.
And it's just like this annual project that everyone looks forward to. And it's just a beautiful room full of people having a great time.
Oh,
and it's very social. They can talk and chit chat, and they have fun, and they do a half at the halfway point. They do this fun thing where they do the hokey pokey, and they know how to have a lot of fun.
That sounds cool. Yeah. Are there like educational opportunities also for your members?
That's something we're actually really wanting to start having. It's actually one of the things that we're really we're working on our strategic plan right now, and one of the things that we want to do is more DEI training. Not necessarily there's a hope that it might be for the broader community, but it would mostly be for our leaders, to help to empower them to be sure that they're given all the tools and resources that they need to create the most safe, inclusive space. Because things are changing and the world is evolving, and we recognize that there's a need to make sure that our chapter leaders feel that they have the tools and the education and the resources to be sure that we're really embodying our values of creating a space where you feel safe and that you belong.
Mm-hmm. Are there other groups like this that are LGBTQ focused that do community service, or are you the only one?
I know of one other organization that is located in SoCal and Northern California that is similar but different. They specifically mobilize volunteers to support queer and trans causes. Okay. So we're different in that we're really out in the entire community. We're serving all people, everyone. all organizations. You talked about churches earlier. We work with churches. We have a really beautiful relationship with the Islamic Center of Southern California, and our volunteers show up. we sit and we volunteer with the families that run their food pantry and serve the community together.
That's fascinating.
And it's a beautiful opportunity to spend time together.
That's really great.
To get to know each other.
That's really something. I think that's really important. That's a bridge.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. We had an opportunity actually to work at the Jewish Community Foundation, not with the foundation, actually with the JCC.
Yeah.
They did a tikkun for troops, and we were able to serve an organization that we've actually worked for in the Valley called Operation Gratitude. But we brought all our volunteers to come and help. And so you had a huge gymnasium full of mostly Jewish volunteers, along with our gay volunteers at the JCC in Irvine. And again, really beautiful opportunity for two groups of people who can be marginalized at times in this world, especially right now. We're seeing that. To be able to spend time together and be in community together and get to know each other.
Right. If I wanted to find out more about Gay for Good, where would I do that?
So the best place to find out about us is on our website, which is gayforgood spelled out, GAYFORGOOD.org. On there, you will find all the organizations we've served. You can read about how you can support us financially, but most importantly, you can see where you can sign up to volunteer. You can select your favorite chapter or chapters. Some people are connected with different cities and will volunteer in different communities. When they're traveling, they'll go find their local chapter.
Oh, fun.
Or maybe they have a vacation home out in the desert, and so they'll do Palm Springs in LA if they're local here. And then we're all over social media. Just type the words Gay for Good, any city you're thinking of, and you will sure to find us on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, like your 21 cities. So
Yes.
How many states are you in?
15.
Wow.
15 states.
Are they in the Western Hemisphere?
Oh, no. Across the U.S. You will find us in New York, in Boston. We have a state in Arkansas, 2 chapters in Colorado. We're in Columbus, Ohio. I mentioned Dallas-Fort Worth. We're in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Chicago, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh.
Amazing.
We're pretty spread across the map, and really the dream is to be in all 50 states.
And you mentioned that you were trying to get onto college campuses. That's not something that's been focused on yet?
It hasn't been focused on yet because we just don't have the staff to do it. Yeah. At the end of the day, like every nonprofit, it's all about time and money. It's resources. It's a lack of having enough resources. And because we have such a small staff, the staff is really focused on the programs and like making sure the work is getting done. And so that doesn't leave a lot of time to go out and really have the deeper fundraising conversations that we should be having. And we're fortunate there's enough people helping out that we can get by. But really we're at a point where it's time to really step that up so that we can say yes to having more kids involved, more youth events on campuses, and being more thoughtful and strategic about that. Because I think it would be really beautiful to have a program where we empower students from the GSA clubs to run an event, even if it's once a semester, once a quarter, depending on how they're organized. It would be so amazing to be able to show them how this is done. And to guide them in that, and to kind of build that next generation of people who have an opportunity to like make this world just kinder. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you found doing community service as a lesbian or part of this community?
From time to time we will show up someplace and our name makes it very clear. It's very purposeful that we're an LGBTQ plus organization. And so there's times where someone might be rolling their eyes. We had an incident once where someone at a site, told us we had to take our banner down, that we didn't belong there.
Wow.
It does
shocking.
happen. It's fortunate that it doesn't happen often. Yeah. And more often than not, and I hear these stories about how our volunteers will show up at a site. They can see there's a little bit of uncomfortableness with some of the other volunteers, but by the end, it's always, hey, when can we get together and volunteer with you? It's like this positive, it's like this instantaneous opportunity to like really actually change a heart and mind, and just
so there's something to it, like when you bring your positivity to and your caring and your goodwill to to other people, that energy can actually is transformative sometimes for other people.
It can be.
Who are vibing in a much lower level or not conscious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You have awakened them to a
Absolutely.
new way of thinking.
And that's the goal.
Yeah. It's a really beautiful thing. And you're helping people too. Like you're actually accomplishing something.
Right.
Which is kind of an amazing thing, to be able to raise consciousness and accomplish things at the same time, which is the beauty of community service, which is, and philanthropy in general. But, if you love humanity and you love our species, then you're probably going to want to do whatever you can to try to raise consciousness and to try to make people just more aware of how we are all interconnected, how, we all share this space, this world, and we're all basically just the same energy.
Right.
So, when we hurt each other, we hurt ourselves.
Exactly. And I think, one of the other things that we get the pleasure of doing is just providing so much visibility for all of these great causes. Yeah. I tell my nonprofits when we show up, I had a conversation with a brand new nonprofit today. I met someone last week from an amazing organization that is doing basketball events for kids with autism.
Oh, very cool.
Because his son was on the spectrum and he started this nonprofit, and we met today via Zoom, and I shared with him, we might bring 15, 20 people to come help you on a Saturday, but thousands get to hear about it. They get to see the pictures on our social media. They get to read about you in our newsletter. They get to hear about the event. And so it provides visibility for them. And in turn, they're doing the same for us. I mean, usually we will find ourselves all over their social media. And so it's a way to really it goes around and around. Mm-hmm. Just all good.
Were you always involved in community service, as a young person?
I didn't get to do a lot of hands-on volunteering that I remember, but I do remember as a young girl always being instilled a sense of giving back in community. And I remember my mom, we would go every year to the City of Hope lunch and watch a little fashion show, but it was always about raising money and just helping a really great cause. And so that's something that I always grew up knowing about. And then when my kids were growing up, we would go and we would, this was pre me being involved with Gay for Good. When my kids were little, we would go and on certain times of year, try and give back and do things for other communities, because I wanted my kids to see that not everybody had what they had. I wanted them to be aware of that. I do think that I was very similar to a lot of people, where the holidays tend to be the times that we volunteer a little more. And I think part of that is just because we have a little more time off and there's a lot of extra events happening at the holidays to feed people and do different things. So I think it's important to do it year round. And that is what I love about Gay for Good, is it's all year round. It's not limited to November and December.
But you do have a big annual event coming up in December, your annual toy drive.
Oh, yes. So about 5 years ago, and you will love this. So I was actually at my time at Cal State Long Beach, and when I was working at the foundation, I had to do a project, and I was looking for an organization to support that was totally unrelated to Gay for Good. And I stumbled upon this young boy named Jonas Corona and his family, and this video of him down on Skid Row at 6 years old, serving the community.
Wow.
Fast forward to when I met him, he was at that point, I believe, in middle school, and his family had created this nonprofit called Love in the Mirror when he was younger, because he wanted to volunteer, and he was being turned away because of his age. Back to your question about, can kids volunteer? Yeah. So they created a nonprofit where they empowered youth in volunteering. And so when I became really active with Gay for Good, I reached out to them and we started volunteering with them. I believe this will be our 6th year. And so every year we do a big toy drive for them, but then we also bring all of the volunteers to show up for the toy distribution. And so we help unload all of the toys, organize all of the toys, and then children in the community get to come in and they get paired up with a volunteer and get to go shop for a holiday.
Oh, that's amazing. I'd love to meet this young man. He's probably in high school now.
He's amazing. He's now in high school. Yeah. I'm sorry, in college.
Oh, he's in college. College. You'll have to connect us, please.
I will have to connect you.
Okay, I would love that. Don't forget.
Yes.
I would love that to happen. I'd love to interview him. He sounds like an amazing human.
Yeah.
I mean, such a young age.
His family is just so amazing. I think what is beautiful about his story is that his family, again, kind of like Gay for Good, saw a gap.
Yeah.
And how can we fix that? And they saw a gap in there being an ability for youth to volunteer. And so they created those spaces. They did peanut butter and jelly times. They do sock drives for veterans.
Fabulous.
They do this toy drive every year. And it is really they are a family-led nonprofit.
Is it, do they have chapters as well?
They don't.
Oh, that's a shame.
No, they don't.
Because there's so many, I get a lot of questions from parents asking me what their kids can do to volunteer, or how can they get hours for community service. And this Love in the Mirror sounds like an organization that for the Los Angeles area that could be helpful.
Yeah.
If you live in that area. But very good. But I would like to, I'd like to talk to him about like what drives that or when he was so young. But it's interesting. I think that families that are philanthropic probably tend to have kids that will be also.
Yes.
So, but I did not come from a philanthropic family. I mean, my parents were always telling me that charity began at home. And I mean, I didn't really understand that, but I was like, okay, but how come everybody else that looks fun and has barbecues, how come they get to do community service and we don't?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but there's, different people, some people are just more insular and more introverted and not club people. And, their community service may take a different form. So like my dad was very much about the individual person doing a good deed every day. Like that was our way.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, just like smiling at somebody in a grocery store or sending, picking up a neighbor's trash cans and bringing them in. There's like lots of ways to be kind.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
You don't have to be a club person. It's like, just be nice.
Yeah, you don't have to be a club person. I mean, my mom is not a club person, and she would never join a club. But anytime I ask her, hey, do you want to cook? Do you want to cook a turkey for the Thanksgiving that we're doing for the homeless in Laguna Beach? And my mom said, of course. And so so anytime I ask her to do like just a small thing or whatever, a big thing for her, she's right there. But we never joined clubs. Like even like school stuff. I remember we had a potluck when I was in the 6th grade, and like they asked all the parents to bring food for this potluck for the kids. And like my mom brought the grossest thing, and I was so embarrassed. But like I still tease her about it. Like, Mom, do you remember when you made that disgusting spaghetti and nobody ate it at that fundraiser they did for the school? But like, my mom would always participate. So like, I knew that like that was the right thing to do, like to help out was the right thing to do, even if you weren't, but and then people have kids that are like extroverted and they're introverted. Like I was the only extrovert in the family of 4. So I'm sure that the introverted family members like kind of looked at me like, what's wrong with her? But when I started to get involved in community service as an adult, because it was a social thing for me, but it was the right thing to do. Like I felt like as an extroverted, as a person that loves people, like that's kind of part of being an extrovert, I think, is that you just like people. You want to be around people. You want to hear their stories. You're curious. And I always tell people, be curious. Because when you're curious, you ask questions, you learn to understand people.
Right.
You can become more empathetic.
Right.
You can learn to be more compassionate for other people when you hear their stories. I mean, I don't understand how you can't look someone in the eye and have them tell you about their struggles and not feel something for them, some kind of feeling. But I think that that's like a key thing that we as a species have to learn how to do. We have to learn how to ask questions and be curious, even if we're not a people person.
Right. Well, and you never know what's going on in someone's day or in their life.
You never know.
It's not, you don't know what's happening for someone. And so I think also giving people grace. Sometimes people aren't very nice, and it might be maybe they're struggling with something. Maybe there's something going on with them that you don't know about. And so I always try to like have empathy and really think about that before snapping to a judgment about anything that someone does. I mean, at the end of the day, of course, it's not nice to experience someone who's being unkind or being grumpy or just plain not nice. But I really do try to think about that. You don't know if that person at the check stand is maybe in pain, or maybe they just lost a loved one, or you don't know what's going on in their life that's made them not greet you with that big,
that's really
happy
interesting
smile.
That you mentioned that, because this happened when we were living at our in the house actually where Blaze was living with us. And there was a checker at the local grocery store that I would actually change lines even if she had the shortest line, I would go to the one, because she just was kind of, I don't know. I got a bad vibe from her. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And so one time I ended up going through and we started talking, and she ended up telling me that she was the mother of a boy that had died in our neighborhood on a motorcycle accident.
Oh my gosh.
I never knew like what her story was. I never knew who the family was of this kid. And I was there when it happened, like, because it was, less than a mile from my house where it happened. But like, I just was like, wow, like you never know,
You
like
really don't.
what is going on in someone's life. And I learned that after Blaze died. So like, I really got it.
Right.
Because he was alive when that happened.
Right.
And this happened just like maybe a year after.
Right.
Actually, not even a year. It happened very soon after because we moved within several months of it happening.
Right.
But yeah, you just don't know.
You don't know. And so I try to just treat everybody with a little bit of empathy and understanding. And doesn't mean I have to excuse bad behavior, but just thinking about that. And also on the flip side of that, just knowing how you being nice to that person could change the trajectory of their day.
Yeah. And working with volunteers too, it's like you can't really get mad at volunteers because they're volunteering.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it's like I've learned that lesson too, like being in the community service world, that like if somebody is going to help me with a project and whether it's my project or it's for an organization that I care for, it's like if they don't show up or they screw up or whatever it is, it's like, okay, they're a volunteer. So,
Right.
it's like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. And I think we also have to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, like there's things that happen, mistakes happen, people make mistakes.
Totally.
And the reality is they're not that big of a deal.
Absolutely.
I remember in my old job, a typo was like the end of the world. Well, you know what? It's a typo.
Yeah.
Nobody died. It was a typo.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself of that a lot.
That's right. Don't.
My wife works in a hospital and, in her job, yes, it can be life or death. And
you don't want to make too many
mistakes from your own
there.
experience, what that's about. And so you just have to like put things in perspective.
That's right.
Try to find the joy where you can.
Vibe high, people.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up today. It was a pleasure having Anne Friedman with Gay for Good. She is one of the enormous staff of Gay for Good in Los Angeles, a whole 2 people, a funded nonprofit that it would like to grow more and be able to offer more and do more things. And I'm sure that they do have fundraising efforts, although we didn't discuss that very much. But if you're interested in contributing to Gay for Good, you can check out their website to find out what you can do to help this organization grow and provide more services for not only its members, but they help everyone. So when you help Gay for Good, you are helping the world, and that is a beautiful thing. Well, that's been another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. And once again, I would like to thank our guest, Anne Friedman of Gay for Good. Thank you for joining us.
I just want to thank you so much for having me today, Jeanne. And I just want to tell everybody we would love to meet you. If you know of a nonprofit, if you want to come out and volunteer, it does not matter. You do not have to identify as LGBTQ+ or any of the beautiful letters under our rainbow. Just come out, find us on our website. And as Jeanne mentioned, we live off of funding and we require donations to thrive and to grow and to be able to say yes to more cities. And so we invite you to be on that journey with us, whether it's a volunteer, a supporter, or telling us about some nonprofit in your community that would love to have a great group of humans to come help them. So please take a moment to visit us on our website, gayforgood.org, and find us on social, and you'll find me there. And my inbox is always open. You can find my email directly on the website and reach out to me anytime. Thank you.
Blaze It Forward is a campaign my family started to repair the world with kindness in honor of our son Blaze, who was murdered in 2018. You can learn more about Blaze and how you can make a difference in this world at our website, www.blazebernstein.org, or on our Facebook group, #BlazeItForward. This month, Blaze It Forward is working on providing T-shirts So we are not normally a merchandise-oriented organization, but we do offer them occasionally when people ask for them, and all profits will go towards ADL, which is helping us to fight hate speech in this world, which is important for everyone. And that's all we've got for today. And a special thank yous to all the volunteers that have helped with my philanthropic endeavors today. That is a thank you to my camera operator, Keith Anthony, and audio technician, Eli Moskowitz, who will be also wearing many hats doing the post-production too. And thank you all again for joining me. I'm Jeanne Pepper, and this has been another edition of Pep Talks with Jeanne. Thank you.